Welcome back to TECHMIMIC, where you can simply view, imitate, replicate, and get on with your day. The topic of this video is QEMU, but I believe that QEMU is the most widely accepted pronunciation. I'm going to cover how to install QEMU KVM step by step on Linux Mint 22 and how to spin up your first virtual machine, along with some tips and tricks along the way, and a general explanation of the Virtual Machine Manager software that you would use to manage your virtual machines. If you have ever used VirtualBox or VMware, this will look very familiar to you. If not, don't worry, it is easy to understand. I will demonstrate this on Linux Mint because Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu. I've tested each and every step and it works almost exactly the same. Whenever there is a difference, I will highlight this. A specific video how to configure this for Fedora 40 will be available soon and it will be linked in the description below. KVM stands for Kernel-Based Virtual Machine and it is available by default on Linux as it is built into the kernel since 2007. I'm going to assume your version is a current one and also the machine you are using for this is not older than, let's say, 7 to 8 years. In that case, most likely, virtualization settings are already enabled in your system's BIOS or UEFI and active in your operating system. To test this, open a terminal and type the command grep-c, quote, open parentheses, vmx, pipe, svm, close parentheses, quote, space, /proc, /CPU info. The returned value should be greater than 0. If it is 0, go into your BIOS or UEFI and enable virtualization technology. This will be different for every machine, so you would have to do some research if needed. A second alternative could be to type the command lscpu pipe grep virtualization, yes, with a capital V and a Z. This should return VT-X for Intel-based systems and AMD-V for AMD-based systems. And a third alternative is to install the package CPU checker by typing the command sudo apt install CPU-checker and running the command kvm-ok. If it reads KVM acceleration can be used, you are good to go. Now we need to install some packages. Type the command sudo apt install QEMU-kvm libvirt-daemon-system libvirt-clients virt-manager. The output of the installed packages will vary between Linux Mint and Ubuntu, but the command to install them is exactly the same. Add the user that you would like to run the virtual machines with to the group KVM. Type sudo adduser, your username, KVM. Now reboot the machine. After the reboot, check if the library virtualization daemon is up and running with the command sudo systemctl status libvirt-d. The libvirt-d service is running. We can now start to use Virtual Machine Manager, but before we do, let me show you this useful command line utility named virsh, the Virtualization Interactive Terminal. Start with the command virsh. The command list will show all of your configured virtual machines. But of course, at this point there are none. Just type help to see the many available options. You can manage all things virtual machines from this terminal. For the remainder of this video, we will use the Virtual Machine Manager software, but I wanted to let you know about the Virtualization Interactive Terminal. Type quit to exit. Now open the menu and select Administration, Virtual Machine Manager. Virtual Machine Manager provides a user-friendly graphical interface for creating and managing your virtual machines. Let's add VMM to the panel for easy access. To do the same for Ubuntu, open the menu, right-click Virtual Machine Manager and click Pin to Dash. I'm going to assume that you know how to and have already downloaded one or more ISO files of the operating systems you want to configure. By the way, if there is a topic or component in the video that you would like to see explained more in depth in a dedicated video, please let us know in the comment section. I am now going to create two different virtual machines so that you can see how this works. One for FreeBSD and one for Zorin OS. But clearly, from this point on, it can be any operating system of your choice. Click the Create a New Virtual Machine button. Select Local Install Media and click Forward. The first method is to browse straight to the ISO file on the file system, as shown here, by clicking Browse Local. But what I like to do is to add a so-called storage pool. I typically place all of my ISOs in a specific directory on my file system. And by simply adding this directory, I will now have a place to directly select the ISOs from for every next virtual machine. Of course, this is optional. You can just as easily browse straight to the ISO file. But to create a storage pool, click the plus icon, type a name, and browse to the directory and click Open and then Finish. Now on the left hand side, the directory, in this case ISO_images, is added as a storage pool for quick reference in the future. Select the ISO and click Choose Volume. If at the bottom it reads Non-Detected, you will need to help the auto detection a little bit by selecting the operating system from the list. In this case FreeBSD 14. Click Forward. Virtual Machine Manager is going to check and ask you for the correct permissions. Click Yes. Now specify the memory and CPUs you want to dedicate to this virtual machine and click Forward. And do the same for the virtual hard disk. Specify the size and the location. In this case I will use the default location and click Forward again. The last step is to specify a name for your virtual machine. And if you want, you can select the Customize Configuration Before Installation checkbox for some final tweaks. Click Finish. The virtual machine is now created and it will automatically start. This is not an extensive tutorial on Virtual Machine Manager, but just a couple of things to note. You can send keys to the virtual machine. You can make the view full screen, scale the display, watch your snapshots from the View menu. You can stop, start, pause, create screenshots and redirect USB devices to the virtual machine from the Virtual Machine menu. All the details of the virtual machine are available under Details in the View menu as shown here. You can always go back to the virtual machine itself by clicking on the display icon to view the console. And interact with the virtual machine from its toolbar with various options. Now let's shut down FreeBSD and create the next virtual machine. Follow the same steps as before. Click the Create a New VM button, browse to the ISO file or select it from the existing ISO images storage pool. As Zorin OS is also not auto-detected, I will simply specify generic Linux 2022. Assign memory, CPU and disk space and specify a name for the virtual machine. The VM will automatically start again and you can play around with it. Let's make it full screen by clicking View, Full Screen. What is interesting to note is that if you go into the system settings or similar inside your guest virtual machine, the VM is aware that it is running as a virtual machine, or at least it is somewhat. As you can see here by the hardware model, which is reading QEMU standard PC, and virtualization, which is reading KVM. Let's shut down the virtual machine for some final tips. Again, this is not an exhaustive tutorial on Virtual Machine Manager, but I think by now you will have seen the many possibilities. On Virtual Machines Manager main view, your virtual machines are listed. Both are shut off at the moment. By starting them, they now read running and the CPU usage graph is being populated. By right-clicking on one of your virtual machines and selecting Open, it will take you to the console of the virtual machine, but it won't start and read no bootable device. The original ISO file is now gone from the virtual machine, and if you haven't installed the operating system before, which I didn't as I only used the live view option of Zorin OS, the virtual hard disk is still empty and the virtual machine can't boot. To reattach the ISO file and change the boot order, shut down the virtual machine, open the virtual machine's details by selecting View Details, click SATA CD-ROM 1 and browse to the corresponding ISO file and select Choose Volume. Click Boot Options and apply the changes made so far. Select SATA CD-ROM 1 and move it up in the sequence so that it is above VirtIO Disk 1. Click Apply. When you now start the VM by clicking the play button and going to the console, it will boot again from the ISO file and you can install the operating system. The setting will be retained across reboots. Now that there are some virtual machines, the earlier virsh list all command will show them. If you are running FreeBSD in a virtual machine, it is a common problem that your mouse pointer just refuses to move in your desktop manager. If you encounter this problem, may I suggest you watch the related video on the topic, where I will demonstrate how to fix this for both QEMU KVM via the Virtual Machine Manager and VirtualBox. There is a link in the description of this video for your convenience. That's it. Hope it helped, and if it did, please like the video and keep it up. Until next time, bye!